Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Christian, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. So many places I want to go with you first, but first off, how are you surviving the ongoing, seemingly never-ending pandemic?
I love it.
That I didn't expect.
I love it, and I also hate it. There's times where I'm like, man, I wish I could like just go on a road trip and like go down to Kentucky, but I'm like, how much research am I going to have to do just to make a road trip, because I don't know what's open, what's closed. Yeah. And I'd also like want to be safe and minded towards different things, and
right.
And being able to get my son who lives in Ligonier when he's not with me,
right.
Like I got to be mindful of him, bringing him to Pittsburgh and being around people in the public more so than he is when he's at home, with being at school at home. So, and then his mom's family and stuff. So there's there's that, but then the pandemic has also created a surge of business in the alcohol industry, which I happen to be at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. So for our listeners and for our viewers, give me the 2-minute story on what you have going on now and the 2 minutes leading up to it.
All right, we'll start that timer because I could talk forever.
Let's do it. No, and we're going to do that. But just so we can give some brief background.
Yeah, so I'm from Ligonier originally. And then I lived in Latrobe for 9 years.
You say Latrobe too, don't you?
Yeah.
I had Natalie Sugars on here, and she says it's not Eric, it's not Latrobe, it's Latrobe.
It is Latrobe.
Latrobe.
If you're from Latrobe, it's Latrobe. I started a brewery back then with an old business partner of mine, Four Seasons Brewing Company. That's in Latrobe. We started that. We opened our doors in late 2013. Got incorporated back in like 11, 12.
All right.
And I was half the money. I was 49% owner, which everybody in the business world that knows if you're if you're a minority, you might as well own zero. So I helped get that off the ground. We quadrupled our capacity in the first year. And then late fall of 2014, my business partner had a lawyer send me a letter saying I was no longer allowed to represent the brewery as an owner and that I was forced out.
Ouch.
And so I got to keep my ownership because the bylaws were so crap because we use LegalZoom.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Never, ever use LegalZoom unless you're a single entity, a single person owner, 100%. And then whenever you want to get real deal with a lawyer and spend $20,000 on making it a true corporation, then you can go down that road. And it was 5 years of litigation, mediation, hell, blackmail, just crazy, because my family was involved. They were half the money, so when things got intertwined, they were brought in and stuff like that on dumb things, and so it was it's nothing against, it's
attorneys
business.
do well.
I'm it's funny is I got that bill and it was funny, but my business attorney, he kept me off the edge. I could honestly say that there was probably throughout most of my life I probably had a hint of depression, just I think like any human does at certain times in their life. But when that happened to me, I never understood what seeing black depression was like true, sit on a couch for 3 weeks and not know what to do with your life type of stuff. That I went through that was what really woke me up to what I am today. That's really what turned the tide for me. I had some really good family friends that led me into what now is Pennsylvania Libations. I started brokering for one distillery, and just a quick, the nutshell version. One distillery turned into one distillery, a couple wineries. That was in 2015. So November of 14, by April of 2015, I was incorporated with CG Simmons LLC, which is Pennsylvania Libations, which wasn't a brick and mortar until 2017.
Okay.
So I was brokering, just selling wines and spirits for PA distilleries and a couple wineries to bars and restaurants only. So I was selling it. I was doing the delivery aspect. I was all of it, all the administration, one-man show. And I got to the point where I had 9 distilleries in my portfolio, a couple wineries, even mead and some cider, but it just one-man show wasn't cutting it. And I couldn't afford with my margins to add other staff. So, yeah. And then I found out, I wrote a letter to the PLCB in the late summer of 2015, asking if doing a brick and mortar was plausible because I saw wineries doing it.
Okay.
When you go to like Castle Wines on Camp Run Road, they had like 5 wineries under one roof.
Yeah.
And I asked one of my winery clients, why can't we do this with spirits? And he was like, I don't think anybody's ever tried. So I wrote the letter, got a response Christmas Eve of 2015 from the PLCB, and they said it was plausible. And with me,
were you surprised?
Kinda, but I mean, at the same time, it was what's wild is that literally a week later, January 1st, 2016, laws dramatically changed for distilleries, where they went from 2 satellite locations to 5 satellite locations, which allows them to have 5 retail locations across the state.
Got it.
So if a distillery only had 2, they probably would have been a little bit held back from giving me one of those to open my brick and mortar.
Right.
But because they now had 5, they're like, yeah, sure, let's see what happens. But it wasn't just like, I don't know you, here's like, this license.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of like the nutshell version. I know that was more than 2 minutes.
No, that's good. That's actually very good. This sounds crazy. The natural question is, what drove you into the alcohol business? Were you fascinated by alcohol at a young age?
No.
Weren't we all?
Yeah. I guess I was a guy like, when I was drinking at field parties, I'm not going to just say how old I was, but I was always the guy drinking like Killian's Red or Yingling or even like Black and Tan Yingling or even like Harp.
So you couldn't drink the regular swill that the rest of us drank?
I mean, I could, but I just didn't
chose
enjoy
not
it.
to. Okay.
I was, I guess you could say, like, once again, less is more. When you drink the heavier beers and stuff like that, you just sip on them. You don't go to, like, you're not doing beer bongs at Harp.
So, you weren't. No, I would imagine not. And you weren't in the Mickey's wide mouth on that nonsense.
No, I've been down that road. Depends who I was drinking with, I guess.
I'm sure we all have.
It's always the group that you're with. But and then I lived in Bend, Oregon. I moved out there when I was 19 to snowboard.
Right on.
Out in Bend, I'm Mount Bachelor, and got lucky
Beautiful
enough.
out there.
Yeah, I got a fry job. I was a fryer cook at Deschutes Brewery's downtown pub in Bend, Oregon, and like I never really realized how much of a coveted job that was.
Okay.
I mean, literally being a cook or a server in any restaurant in Bend, Oregon at that time was like very coveted because none of them were really open during the day.
Right.
You could ski or snowboard 7 days a week during the day and then go to work at night. It was like a bigger Aspen, but not as expensive, but still expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's kind of I kind of fell in love with the art because I used to go to the brewery because you get a free case of beer every week of mislabels.
Mislabels.
Yeah, mislabeled bottles of Deschutes Brewery's beer. And then even sometimes kegs when they are like the end of the batch where it was like half filled, you could take those as long as you return the keg. So I'd go and hang out at the brewery and just sit there and watch these guys like do their art, and I just kind of never really understood it. I never asked questions so much. I just kind of like just
thought it was
this
cool.
Is cool.
Yeah,
like turn water into money. Well, I guess you could do that without having to do. You can just leave it water and put it in a bottle. And,
true, that's been done.
Yeah. So yeah, and then moved back from Oregon, and I actually was always in kind of like a construction or labor type of job. I always had the work ethic to be able to kind of do whatever was given to me, whether it was a shovel or a paintbrush or a nail gun, And at 24, I started working heavy highway road construction for Swank. I was a deep saw foreman. I cut bridge decks, concrete pads, like what you see where they were replacing the cracks in the road with bigger concrete pads.
Yeah.
I did that for almost like 7 years.
That's some pretty hardcore labor there, huh?
It was. I would not recommend anybody over 29 to do that job.
I wouldn't think.
So snowboarding for 20-some years, doing that kind of stuff. And then I slowly, once I had my son, I slowly worked. I was always on the road. I lived out of a suitcase on that for those 7 years. And then got local jobs kind of in the same pay rate. And when I had my son so I could be around. And then coincidentally ran into my old business partner at a gas station. And he's like, hey, I'm home brewing up the street. You want to come up and stop up and check it out? And then after that, it just became what it was. And I fell in love with the industry when that happened, with the sales, the distribution, the marketing, the social media, and the people in the industry. Mm-hmm. I love just the blood, sweat, and tears. There's so many people in this industry, in the wine, spirits, and beer industry, that have like given up their day-to-day jobs, sold their 401ks, did that whole thing.
Crazy passion in that industry.
Yes,
huh?
And it's kind of like live or die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, what else are you gonna do? You gonna go work for the man again? No. I mean, I would. I mean, but I wouldn't be able to just be a laborer. I'd want to be like a boss.
Yeah, of course. Once you get the entrepreneurial bug and you get a taste of it, regardless of whether it works or it doesn't, you never want to go back to corporate.
Yeah, or even just laborer. But the thing is, I know that whatever happens in my life, I'm always going to be able to put food on the table.
Right.
I have the ability to work.
It's confidence, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always, and I think that's belief in yourself. Really, when it comes down to it, I mean, you know that no matter what happens, that you're going to land on your feet. You will provide. You will be able to survive.
Yeah, I think that's should be the model for a lot of people. Just just work. I always say like, man, these people have way too much time on their hands. They should get a second job. Or offer like to teach people, like, you know, if you're a tradesman or something like that. Like, I don't know. I kind of always say if they get, I guess, you know, people are like work 9 to 5. They go home. They spend time with their family. They do different things. I get that too, but then at the same time, for me, I'm just kind of like, it's nothing. It's limitless. If you want to put the time in, and I'm not saying you got to do it for 50 years.
Agreed.
If you just put that time, and that's me. I love spending time with my son. He is like my reprieve from what I love to also do, which is to work.
Right.
And if I could work 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, I would. And I'm getting to that point. I'm starting enough businesses that like it's always going to be a push and pull. And I mean, my business is only shut down like 5-6 times a year for national holidays, but we're open the day before and the day after, always. So,
are people just generally, philosophically speaking, are people just generally industrious, or they're not? Is that your mindset in terms of what you see?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I definitely I understand it, and I love it because I guess I envy them a little bit in the sense of like people that are like, I'm coming to work from 9 to 5. Don't call me after 5. Like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to spend time with my family. And I'm guessing that's what you're asking is like kind of like that, the separation between those kind of people. But we like, just like salespeople and administration people, you need both, right? I have great staff that have taught me that.
The world needs everybody.
Yes, exactly. So, and I would say there's like, for me, like, yeah, it's like my one, Alyssa, my director of operations, she's like, when you work for Christian, you better bring your shoes for running. Like, you better bring your running shoes because it's always go, go, go.
Yeah.
But like another advice I've gotten before is like, hey, like, you know, like if your staff's doing their job and like, you don't always have to make them work.
Yeah.
If they're getting their job done, you know, give them some reprieve, like, you know, let them, and I try. But I love what I do and it's fun.
Let's just go into it, the entrepreneurial stuff real quick, just some philosophies. Because what I hear you saying is that you can't expect an employee to feel the same passion that you do as the entrepreneur, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's hard to learn that at times.
And I've also kind of learned how could I? And, you know, and there's some business entities that we haven't gone public with just yet, but they're going to allow me to essentially make it an employee-owned company. Got it. And it's in our industry, and the goal for us is that everybody that, like, once you're with the company, with my CG Simmons LLC company for at least a year, you get offered shares, and you're now part owner of these new entities. And then it's kind of like an extra bonus 401k, because I don't have a 401k yet for my staff, but I do have health benefits.
Got it. I got it.
But I got it. So me personally, I don't believe in something that I can't actually like build or do something. So 401k to me, like I understand it, but for me, there's no guarantees in life. And so, but what is a guarantee is what you put into life. I think like the hard work in building a company and then selling it someday, or always just getting a quarterly bonus check every month from the company thriving, you know, it's and they put their time and effort into that. So it's kind of like a bonus or a reward for helping me build my current company. Yeah,
I think you get more emotional investment too with the employee-owned firm, right? I mean, because that's the one thing entrepreneurs forget, I think, oftentimes, especially smaller or younger entrepreneurs, that it's impossible to get someone to care about your business as much as you, because and the rational thought is, because I felt it in my younger years of entrepreneurship, that, well, I'm paying them good money. I mean, aren't they motivated by money? And unless you get that emotional buy-in, man, I mean, and it's almost impossible unless there's some real ownership attached to that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I guess for me is because this is my baby, like my current CG Simmons, like Pennsylvania Libations. It's like it's easier for me to start other companies and offer ownership in those than
Got
it
it.
is to just
Oh, yeah,
my
absolutely.
current, right?
Absolutely.
But there's definitely I wouldn't never not say and never that I wouldn't offer ownership to my staff that like eventually like they stick around and they literally
Absolutely.
are the roots of my foundation, right? And and if the company's actually, I mean, I wouldn't honestly say that my company has like the type of, I mean, I know what we're worth. I know we will be worth too once as we build out our 5-year projection plan, in which we're 30% above that going into year 4. And I guess you could say is that like someday it will actually be worth something. Like, why would I want to give ownership to something that doesn't have true worth just yet, right? But at the same time, is like I don't want to just hand out any kind of debt. Which
Right on.
Yeah,
Right on. Talk a little bit about the business of alcohol. Yeah, because we had a conversation off camera in regards to what I remember where hard liquor could be bought one place. That was the State Store forever. It couldn't be advertised on TV. So it wasn't in the consciousness, I don't think, out of people that really just liked their whiskey or their bourbon or their liqueurs, and they would go get it. And it was just a part of almost the routine of life, because it wasn't really marketed. It wasn't part of what we saw. It wasn't exposed. There was no exposure to people who didn't drink that stuff. Does that make any sense?
No, you're absolutely right. No, that's the one-stop, it's the one-stop shop with the PLCB, the fine wine and good spirits that everybody knows. It's definitely ingrained into their DNA. That's like the only place that you would ever think that
in
you could
Pennsylvania.
buy it. Yeah, in Pennsylvania, and that's fine. I mean, but now with that industry, distilleries and wineries in Pennsylvania, if they have the right product and the right price line, they can have their products in the State Store as well.
Got it.
Not just my store, but it's not like an open market. Like it's the PLCB, the State Stores are definitely a business.
Got it.
They're in the business to make money. They have a union organization that's in business to make sure their employees are treated fairly and are also paid well as well. And everybody deserves to get what they deserve, right?
Right.
But then at the same time is that there's the lockhold of privatization. Not having privatization.
It's still state run, right?
Yes.
It's not a capitalistic venture. It's part of the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all fine. I mean, to me, it's in the beginning, everybody's like, "Oh, they're the competition. They're the competition." I'm like, "No, like they're a $1 billion entity. Like I'm not a competition to them. But maybe in some years, I'll be more of an actual like an addition to them where." I guess to me, I want to flip it. I want to become an entity that the PLCB and the State Stores we could partner in a sense, where my job is to promote all the PA distilleries, which should have serious amount of shelf space and visual, being able to be visual to a buyer coming in, and which is limited to some distilleries because you need a marketing budget. You need to be able to have the product to the volume to be able to fill 500 or 700 State Stores. A lot of these guys and girls don't. So, but I guess you could say where my vision would be is to have multiple locations, which we're working on Philadelphia market right now, hoping that turns into something in the next couple weeks. And also like the Harrisburg market or State College market, as far as having retail locations.
Right.
But what we're looking to do is to promote local spirits, but then we could even be a promotion company for the PLCB where we go to the premium stores where they carry a prominent amount of PA spirits that are in my portfolio.
Okay.
And we do tastings
Got it.
at all these locations. And we
Is that done
push it.
with wine now?
Yeah,
to a degree?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done tastings with distilleries like Philadelphia Distilling and some State Stores here in Pittsburgh back in the day when I was like a one-man show. But we, we're not fighting against anybody. We're trying to create brands, build brands.
Okay.
My management company agreements that I have and stuff like that, we have territorial rights. We have agreements in place and termination clauses, and we have all that stuff when it comes to just not retail, but also wholesale. We're currently selling to hundreds of bars and restaurants wholesale in the Pittsburgh market.
Okay.
We have 3 reps just in Pittsburgh. We have one in Allentown, up like northeast Pennsylvania. Then we have one in Philadelphia, plus a director of sales.
Wow.
And we're about to hire another one in Erie and Harrisburg. And the Philadelphia market actually does happen at the Reading Terminal. We're hoping that it does. If not, we'll find our own brick and mortar in Philadelphia. It'll just take longer to do.
Okay.
But we'll probably we'll have probably hire 4 more reps, sales reps out in Philadelphia, plus upwards of like 10 retail staff.
And that's all under Pennsylvania Libations.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. So that idea is that expansion, and we promote these local brands and saturate Pennsylvania with these local brands, low hanging fruit, as I call it.
Right.
And it should actually help the sales in the state stores go up. But right now, I currently don't get us commission when it sells in the state store. I only get a commission when I sell it myself.
Got it.
Maybe someday down the road, I will change some of my licensing where I can actually say, hey, when you sell a pallet of booze to the state store, no matter where it goes, I get 5%.
Right.
I'm not saying that will ever happen, but I might not have to ask that, right?
Got it.
So
right now, though, you're, if I understand this correctly, you're marketing these spirits to bars and restaurants, but you're also selling directly at your brick and mortar location. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So Jeremy Noah, he's from Washington, PA. He's my vice president of the company, but also like the director of sales or VP of sales, whatever you want to call him. But he went from kind of being like my more like on like always with me every day to now being the manager of all these other reps, and that's his wheelhouse, and that's what he's creating for my company. So that delegation that we talked about, delegating, saying, because that used to be me, right? And how I always say it is that the only way that I ever hire somebody to do my job is if they're as good as me or better. And it's very hard to find that. I'd like to think next to impossible, but I have found that, right? And then the administration stuff, like my mother actually helped me, even though she's an entrepreneur, and my family has a very successful insurance company out in Greensburg.
Right.
She helped me get this thing off the ground. So for someone to replace her, which is my director of operations, Alyssa Meter, who has definitely stepped it up and has like shown me that like I'm like, I didn't know we could be this awesome on the back end of the business.
Got it.
And then and I have other employees, Zach Fisher, who runs my liquor store, who started as just a retail, and that's where Alyssa started, just retail, like part-time retail, full-time retail, store manager, director of operations.
Got it.
And so a lot of people have grown like, with my company, and we've lost some good people along the way too.
That's you're gonna have that.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that's I guess the bigger vision is the delegation and being able to grow the company. So my concentration right now is this expansion. We're looking at a space in Shadyside as well on Walnut Street, just right next to Banana Republic.
Place to be over there.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like you could say it goes up and down.
Certainly.
You know what I mean?
Certainly.
But with Patagonia and Apple Store, I'm waiting to find out how long Apple's like guaranteed to be on that street before I commit to anything too much. But I'm trying to, I want to know, like, if they're not re-signing their lease and it's up in a year, then I'm like, where are they going?
Yeah, good point. Where are they going?
Yeah, so I don't think that's going to kill Shadyside. I just think that it's definitely a back of that.
It's gonna affect rental rates for sure.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah, it would. I mean, yeah, the rental rates up there are twice as much as the old historic strip in Pittsburgh. So you're talking like $45 to $50 a square foot.
I bet.
And right now, like the liquor store that area is between like $22 and $30 a square foot.
Wow.
But then you have the produce market, like the produce terminal. I mean, the big long 5-block building, those prices are between $35 and $45 a square foot, depending on your TI and like your tenant improvement money. But you have a full build out at that building. Like you're talking anywhere from $200 to $400 a square foot to build that place out.
No doubt.
And if you're a restaurant, I've heard I've heard restaurants tell me it could take better part of 5 to 10 years to get your profitability back.
I would imagine
after a build out, right?
I would imagine.
But I'm sure that the people with that building and stuff, I'm sure they'd be very flexible with startups and small businesses. I know they're bringing a couple pretty cool entities from Chicago, but I don't know, I'm kind of going all over the place here.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. Let's talk about, if we can, I'm going to get your thoughts on the culture of alcohol over the last couple decades. Let me give you my background of what I know and don't know. craft beer became a thing in my consciousness, I want to say in the early 2000s. Not that it wasn't around earlier than that, but the first specialized beer I saw hit in mainstream America was this nasty tasting thing called Sam Adams. And by the time it reached my consciousness, it probably was early 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s. So not that I was a heavy beer drinker, but there wasn't a lot visually that we saw. So what's the history of craft beer in general, or we'll get to the liquor in a second, but just craft beer in general, and specifically in Pittsburgh? Like, who's gets credited for bringing craft beer to Pittsburgh or the Pittsburgh region?
Me. No, I'm just
right
kidding.
on. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
I'm kidding. No,
that's a lot to ask you.
Sam Adams was originally made in Pittsburgh. He contracted it in Pittsburgh.
I did not know that.
Drove down in box truck.
Who brewed it?
I want to say that it was Iron City might have contracted that for him.
So when Piccarelli had it?
I don't know. I know that I don't think Rolling Rock did it. I mean, they're making where Rolling Rock is now like a contract brewery.
That's what I heard.
And they're making Sam Adams there by the cajillions.
Got it. So I didn't know that. So Iron City Beer might have been the brewer of Sam Adams. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it was entrepreneurial at its time, right? And now he's worth $1 billion, and he just joined forces with Dogfish Head, I believe. So I mean, can't fight him, join him.
Absolutely.
So, as far as Pittsburgh's like craft beer scene, I mean, East End Brewing Company, Scott over there, the owner, I think he's one of the forefathers for sure.
And how far are we going back? Late 90s?
Not even that far. I would probably say, I think he's like maybe 15 years old.
Okay.
10 or 15. Definitely 10, if not 15. And
But craft beer itself goes back a couple of decades. It just wasn't prevalent in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you got Sierra Nevada.
Right.
You know, Deschutes Brewery's been around for over 20 years.
That's considered craft. What is craft beer?
Well, legally, it's like under a certain amount of 100,000 gallons or something like that.
Okay, so there's an actual limit of what production is.
Yeah, technically, I mean, depending on how you look at it, like there's like Sam Adams, they've changed some numbers around as far as I know. And I haven't really kept my finger on the pulse
fair enough.
with that so much as far as the micro versus macro craft breweries.
Okay.
Because macro is usually like considered like Budweiser, Miller stuff.
Got it.
But they've also kind of made it going from craft brewery to micro craft, where it's like Yuengling could be considered a craft. Like there's been like Yuengling's the craft brewery of the year for the nation. We're like, Yuengling is not. They've been around forever, and they're not a craft brewery. But they do make good beer. I mean, I love nothing more than a 95-degree day, cutting the grass and chugging down a 12-ounce can of ice-cold Yuengling. Like, I don't think there's many Pennsylvanians that wouldn't enjoy that.
Right.
So, to me, there is that. So it's, to me, that's, I mean, craft or no craft, it's good or it's not. Like, to me. But as far as, like, the craft market, you got, like, Voodoo up in Meadville. We talked about Victory Brewing out east. Then you got Trogs, some of those guys. And, I mean, I don't think Sly Fox has been around very long. Not super long. They've been around. But, but the Pittsburgh market, it's definitely, like when I started Four Seasons with my business partner, Grist House started then. Hitchhiker started around that time. Brew Gentleman started around that time. And those are some of the, I would say some of the newer, like the next surge. But back in the 90s and stuff, in 2000s, I can't honestly say. I mean, I was a teenager.
Yeah, come on now. I just don't remember being a prevalent thing.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I've talked to bar owners that have been around in the beer industry or the bar industry since the 70s, and they said alcohol sales have dramatically dropped at a bar for a number of reasons. Craft beer, but we're talking since the 70s and 80s, like liquor sales were 10 times more than they are now.
That's interesting.
And because of like the beer market, but also the laws changing with DUIs.
No question.
And so people are like, I could have 2 Yuenglings versus 2 cocktails. 2 cocktails, I'm getting a DUI. 2 Yuenglings, I'll probably breathe just underneath. But I've seen people drink 1 double IPA and get a DUI. So like it's
no doubt.
Just don't drink and drive. I mean,
period.
So it's so it's so craft beer, that's always a thing. You know what I mean? That's why I live in the Strip District and work in the Strip District. I get to walk everywhere.
To revisit your history again, you were partners, minority partner.
Yes.
What was the name of the brewery?
Four Seasons Brewing
Four
Company.
Seasons, and you had
Great beer, dude. He makes great beer,
Right.
And it's just we were best friends, and I always say like, don't do business. I've learned don't do business with your best friends.
You have to learn that. They can tell you till you're blue in the face.
Yeah, but my new brewery, Bonafide Beer Company, that's in the Strip District. I started with Travis Tuttle, who's the head brewer of at Butler Brew Works up in Butler County.
Okay.
Great guy. We became friends over the last couple of years. Who we also technically are their sales representatives for their brand as of recently, but he's going to be, we're 50-50 owners.
Got it.
So I wanted this relationship to I wanted to prove a point. So literally a part of our logo is the numbers 50-50, not 49-51. You know what I mean? So the incentive on that.
You learned math.
Yeah. But it was the operating agreement. Like I've never really did a true operating agreement, and what I call punching each other in the jugular.
Got it.
Saying things you don't want to say, but like you got to talk about
tough
it.
sit down.
Yeah, and the thing is like it really shows who you are, and the pure entity of what I want with Bonafide is to just to be able to prove a point that business can be done with a business partner if you do the structure right from the beginning.
Well, you have to have your exit agreement signed from the beginning.
Exactly.
Right.
First rule of business is exit.
Yeah.
Like that better be part of your first or second sentence. Like, you know, where are you getting the money? And what's your exit strategy?
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
And I've learned that working with Small Business Development Center, helping building business. I love building business plans. I can build one in 4 hours.
Yeah,
other
right
than like the spreadsheets and Excel stuff, that's my accountant's stuff to do.
Right on.
But yeah, the my business partner in Latrobe, I guess it was the 49-51, but.
You learned.
Yeah.
So it's part of the journey, man. Mm-hmm. You learn. You won't make that mistake again.
Yeah. But I fell in love with it. So this industry, that was definitely, so I got to thank him for
certainly
bringing me into this industry, but also kicking me out of the brewery so that I started. Right. So, and that's what all started this. So if anybody ever doesn't like me for me doing what I'm doing now, you can
blame it on him. So let's talk about spirits. Never saw spirit commercials. Spirits were the things that my grandfather and my great uncle would go down and buy once a week, or for the week. But it was something that, as someone in their 50s grew up in Pittsburgh, ethnic mill town, working class people. It was just a shot in the beer town. That's what I remember. So to see. Is it fair to say craft bourbon? What do you call specialized spirits? Custom? I built custom
craft.
guitars.
It's local.
It was unique.
Local spirits.
This is unique spirits. This is.
It would be called local. Craft bourbon, not really think local bourbon. Local spirits, I guess, kind of more so. Craft distilleries, I guess.
Craft distilleries.
Yeah, craft distilleries would probably be the proper term for it.
Okay.
And it's more like small batch type of things. There's
boutique.
Boutique could be another term.
I love that word.
Yeah.
We're a boutique podcast.
Yeah. Like boutique, that can go two different ways. That could be like, it's like, they're super hyper focused on the best product ever, and they spend all this extra money to make it the best product, but then when they get into volume sales, they realize when they scale up, they're like, this isn't tangible, and we have to charge so much that nobody's going to buy it.
Absolutely.
And it goes along with beer, goes along with spirits. You know what I mean? And
that's the rub, man.
Yeah, you can use the most expensive hops in the world and make the best craft IPA ever, but then you want to go to the scale of doing 240 barrels at a clip and put it in cans, and that beer can only last you so many months in a can before it starts going bad. You know what I mean? You got to have so many more other entities set up with distribution and with timing and so you can't, and then expect people to pay an astronomical fee for this beer because you use extremely expensive hops.
Exactly right.
So, that goes to that. But like with spirits, there's a lot of craft distilleries in Pennsylvania now. well over 100. And
this just happened in the last 15 years?
Yeah, 2005. So
2005.
That was when Rob Castle, he started Philadelphia Distilling, which a lot of people know as Blue Coat Gin.
Yeah.
And then they also have the Vieux Absinthe, which he also was the first distillery in America to ever bring absinthe back to America from when it was actually
interesting.
I don't know what year it was.
It's all his
made
fault.
illegal. Yeah, right. But
your hangovers might all be his fault.
Beautiful product, beautiful bottle. And so when he started that in 2005, that was the first Pennsylvania distillery since Prohibition. And then since then, he's gone on to different things, but he's like the PA Distillers Guild's president. He now owns a distillery called Kinsey, and New Liberty Spirits is technically the name, but the brand Kinsey, you can find his bourbon and rye whiskey in state stores, like 500 state stores. He's been around for a while, and he's newer to my portfolio this year, actually. He didn't come along in the beginning. Not really sure if we were ready for each other just yet, but we're ready for each other now. And he's very focused towards progression and building his brand, and he loves what we're doing, and we love what he's doing. But we also have other really local distilleries like Liberty Pool Spirits in Washington, PA.
Okay.
We got here in Coriopolis, we got Bella Bambini.
I saw that.
Right?
I
so
saw that
they're both in my portfolio, and they both
limoncello, right?
Mm-hmm. And he makes
right down
orange,
the street.
Pineapple, Cafe Cello.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Liberty Pool, they're a family-owned distillery that's a true craft, like grain to glass, or we call it a heritage whiskey, where they use local grains, local corn, and they have a bourbon, they have a rye whiskey, they also have a peated bourbon that's kind of like if a Scotch and a bourbon had a baby kind of thing. So you get the smokiness and the peatiness, but also the sweetness of the corn from the bourbon.
Okay.
And they're just in Washington, and they also have a cream bourbon that's kind of like Bailey's, but what we always say is it's everything that Bailey's wishes it was, but wasn't.
Interesting.
It's that good. So it's one of our best-selling products in the retail store, just because it's so easy when we do samples there. Like, people are just like, all right, it's not super boozy. It's like something I can drink with coffee, which is one of the most well-known drink in the world.
Right.
And it's a perfect aperitif, just sipping on something sweet and not having to eat a big fat piece of cake. So
got it.
So they've definitely done really well for themselves, and they're definitely growing. And then, we got Red Pump Spirits, which is in Washington. They're a straight liqueur company. And we got some definitely local craft distilleries here, other than like Wiggle. We got Kingfly. We got also sell Maggie's Farm Rum Distilleries also in my portfolio. So Pittsburgh's definitely seeing that surge. We got a couple other new ones that are popping up here and there. But the idea of the difference between a craft brewery, they don't always have to make everything. A lot of people don't know this.
Right.
You can make it grain to glass, or you can source it. You can buy barrels of whiskey that are already aged from 6 months to 2 years to 4 years to 12 years to 20 years. A lot of people don't know that some of these bigger brands.
I wouldn't have suspected that.
Yeah, like Bullet. Whistle Pig used to be sourced. They're probably not sourced anymore.
Whistle Pig?
Yeah, in the beginning, when they first started, they were sourcing from a distillery in Canada.
Okay.
Products that were already aged like 10 or 12 years. High West is sourced.
But isn't that, if you're subbing out that, isn't it? How do you get it to have your unique flavor?
It's the blending technique.
Okay.
So the blending of barrels. So like one barrel is only going to have anywhere from 150 to 250 bottles, depending on the angel share that dissipated or how old. Usually the older it is, the less volume you get out of it.
Okay.
But sometimes you'll blend like an 18-year-old bourbon with a 4-year bourbon because they marry perfectly. And then you have a blend, you have a bourbon blend, but like it's still creating a unique product. But the other issue that is like how many of those barrels you're going to be able to get your hands on.
Right.
And if you can only do a limited run, you're limited in your sales and your marketing of that product.
Certainly.
So there's big distilleries like MGP in Indiana State. There's another one I believe in North Carolina and one in Kentucky as well. Like Four Roses, they're a blending distillery. Now they're making their own stuff, but they were essentially, when they began, they just bought barrels from other distilleries, whether they're aged or not.
It's got a big mixologist.
Exactly. And there's an art form to that, and we've seen the difference. So I can tell you like the pricing structure for a distillery to make a 53-gallon barrel whiskey in-house with the products and everything without the equipment and all that stuff, but like pretty much the juice, fill in the barrel and the brand new barrel. You're talking like anywhere from $400 to $800 for a
Wow.
distillery to fill one of those barrels. But you age that thing for 4 years and sell them for $50 a bottle, you're making $10,000 to $12,000. Your gross sales.
Yeah.
So you're making real money. But somebody can go to MGP and buy a 4-year bourbon for $1,800.
Got it.
And not have to own an equipment and not have to make it. And as long as the product's good, you throw it in a bottle, proof it down. But you have to, even proofing down a cask strength bourbon still takes a technique. It's
And
not,
when you say proofing down, what do you mean?
so when you get it in the barrel, it's usually depending on the the alcohol level that it goes into the barrel, which is anywhere. It can be from 100 proof, which is 50% alcohol, upwards of normally no more than 125. 125 proof.
Yeah.
So your Jim Beam is 80 proof. It's 40%. So when it's put in the barrel, it's much higher.
Got it.
So it gets cut down with water, and some distilleries just flush it with water. Some of them add water over time, over a 9 or 10 day process, or even 2 weeks, and they just let it kind of marry with the water. And there's also tons of chemistry going on with the water, what kind of water you're putting into, the acidity level into the pH levels.
Right.
And it's all chemistry. That is not my
no
wheelhouse
doubt.
at all. I'm sure anybody that knows anything about spirits, is a distiller out there, is going to be like, this guy is full of shit. But I know this the business side of it,
Sure,
right? And more so than anything. But so when you proof it down, you're saying if it was cask strength, single barrel product, you might only get 200 bottles out of a 4-year bourbon barrel.
Okay.
But you could turn that 200 bottles into 240, 260 bottles by proofing it down to 80 proof. From say 120, so you get more volume and things like that. But it's like in craft, it's not about just making money. It's about creating the right product, and that's what matters. Like, you get some well whiskey that's $12.99 at the state store. Nobody gave two hoots about that stuff.
Old Crow.
It's crap. It's straight junk. But you can find some really good whiskeys out there for $20. It's no lie, right?
Okay.
But it's still going to give you a way worse hangover. But for me, I guess, is that in the craft spirits, the distilleries we're working with, they know that. But there's also, there's an art to it. And some people, it's people, not everybody cares if it's sourced or not.
Right.
People do.
Right.
Those people hold true to
You're
those.
aficionados.
Yeah, to an extent. But at the same time, it's like they're going to the estate store. They're going to be like, all right, I'm going to spend $60 today.
Yeah.
I'm going to go big, and they're like, all right, well, I can get a 2-year bourbon from a local distillery for $60, or I can get this Knob Creek 12-year-old for $60. Which one do you think they're going to get?
I get the Creek.
Exactly. Yeah. All day long.
Yeah.
But what would happen if you did kind of like what Knob Creek maybe, or what some distilleries do in sourcing? What happened if you did source a 12-year-old bottle, a 12-year-old barrel, proofed it down to the same proof as that Knob Creek, and we're able to put that 12-year age statement and sell it for $60 because your margins are maybe not as great as Knob Creek, but they're still profitable.
Right.
So there's that science behind the marketability of your product, and saying, you know what? And that's the difference between me and a lot of people, is that a sell is a sell.
Right,
and that's my wheelhouse.
Right.
Sometimes I don't make money on big sales. Sometimes I do, because I'm sometimes willing to take a lower commission.
Certainly.
I just want, and it's about volume at the end of the day.
No question.
And making everybody happy. That's what I am. I'm a management company. I make everybody happy, and try to, at least. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but it's so it's the science, and we try to educate our distilleries clients and our winery clients. Like, if you guys, this is what we're seeing. That's the 17 distilleries we have in our liquor store down the strip.
Right.
About 190 different spirits. We see what people gravitate towards. We see the price lines they gravitate towards, the branding, the bottle shape, and sometimes people are our best-selling bourbon in the store is Stolen Wolf out of Lancaster, Lidditz, PA. Dick Stoll, and then Eric Wolf and Aviana Wolf. But Dick Stoll was actually the original distiller for Michter's back in the day before they sold. And essentially, for the most part, what we understand is that any of the Pappy Van Winkle that people are drinking that are over 20 years old is what used to be Michter's.
I knew that.
And he distilled that.
Okay.
And he just recently passed away this year, so RIP to him. And but Stolen Wolf, they were selling their 4-year bourbon. It was sourced $60, and it was our best-selling bourbon, even though it's our most expensive bourbon. And we told people it was sourced.
Huh.
They don't care. It's at the end of the day, I have technically, but but it's okay if distilleries hold true to their nature and stay heritage and like only sell what they make. And in 30 to 50 years from now, where their generations come in and keep the distillery going, it's gonna matter. Like, it's really gonna matter.
Yeah.
But
I see that.
in today's market, people want the best product for the cheapest buck.
No doubt.
And so, but at Bullet, I mean, they sourced for the first like 10 years of their existence or 8 years, and then they started making their own and holding their own barrels. And then obviously their margins will probably get better.
Well, certainly.
But the idea there is that to start a brand, to start a distillery, I've been pretty much told, don't buy a building, spend all your money on marketing and increasing your product, your volume, and
really,
and just spend your money there. Like, obviously, if you want to make your own stuff, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's just, especially with the bourbon world. That's why you see people be like, we're going to be a bourbon distillery. And then next thing you know, they have a vodka, gin, a rum, a liqueur, all these other stuff because it's taking longer. They have to, I call it the products that keep the lights on.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So.
Right. It seems as a consumer, an outsider looking into the industry, that everything just exploded right around 2005 because, again, there were 5 or 6 heavyweights, 5 or 6 heavyweight whiskeys / bourbons that you knew. There was a certain couple kind of gins, couple kind of vodkas, and but national brands, worldwide brands. But the concept of a custom or a craft or unique or a specific or whatever term you want to use, spirits is not new. It's not in our consciousness. This is the Wild West. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I get it to a degree. The industry I was in, we made custom guitars that were not big box brands to fit a certain niche. And people loved it. They bought into it was a culture of buying and owning unique stuff. We saw that. I think it's the same thing in spirits. Am I right?
Yeah. It's same with cars. Same with
is that an American phenomenon? Just especially like the last maybe 40, 50 years. People love uniqueness, custom stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I'm kind of like that too, but not. I mean, I don't know. I guess my business is custom.
Okay.
It fits a niche. Right?
Okay. Yeah. And you're working in that niche.
Yeah, and that niche is on figuring out the loopholes or the weaving and diving in the liquor laws in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So it goes along with that too. But yeah, the niche market. Yeah, I mean, like you were talking about with gins and stuff. Like I think. Like 2005 was Philadelphia Distilling, and then
is that a state law we're talking about in 2005? So other states already had these real specific mom and pop distilleries.
I don't know how many, but I definitely would say that in 2005, I would say it started to definitely start happening.
Okay.
But Boyd and Blair here in Pittsburgh, they're the potato vodka.
Right.
They're international.
Right.
They were actually just voted this year the #1 vodka in the world.
Huh.
Glenshaw, baby.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, Barry Young and those guys over there. Barry Young's one of the main owners or the owner, and they just turned 10 years old last year. They're going on 11. I mean, they're all over the place, man. They're selling all over the world and they just came out with a brand new line of products called RTDs, which is a big phenomenon right now.
What is that?
It's ready to drink RTD, and it's pre-batched, ready to drink cocktails in a bottle, and they're in like
the mixer with it and everything.
Everything's in the bottle, so it doesn't need to stay refrigerated for the most part.
Well, Jack Daniels did that years ago, right?
Yeah, it's not like
Beam did
they're
that.
not reinventing the wheel here, but like it's just something that with the cocktailing at home. Not sometimes like even I like being in this industry. Like I don't even like making myself an old fashioned. I don't even think I can make an old fashioned very well. I mean, I could.
Lazy bastards.
Yeah. I own a bar that's 45 feet long. That is probably one of the nicest bars in Pittsburgh as far as being a bartender goes.
Got it.
But because it was built by bartenders. Like I was like, hey bartenders, like how would you want your dream bar to be? And they built it, right? They drew in what they wanted, and I paid for it.
Right on.
So, but the idea is it's always made better by a good bartender. Like
certainly,
but what Boyd and Blair has done is created these products you just literally pour over ice at home, and you have to decide how big of a straw you want after that. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty cool.
Got
it. But the laws in 2005, the resurgence in America, I'm not entirely sure, but Pennsylvania, I would say up until 2016, I think Wiggle opened in 2011, 2012, give or take. Maybe 2010 they got incorporated. I'm not sure, but there was a very small amount of distilleries in Pennsylvania until 2016. The laws changed, but also the tax reasons also helped distilleries as well. And we definitely have seen a surge. Like I probably in 2020 alone, I've turned away at least 5 different distilleries that wanted to be in my portfolio in the retail shop. We just don't have any shelf space. But that's one of the reasons why we're hoping to open up another spot in Shadyside, up on Walnut, is because it's twice the size of the one on the Strip. We're going to keep the one on the Strip.
Got it.
But we'll be able to invite, technically, depending on how many of my current distilleries working with me want to be in that spot. If I have some that are like, yeah, we're good, thanks, I'm going to invite other distilleries into that spot. And that's, I have to. It's a business model.
Got it.
I got to cover the rent.
Got it. Talk a little bit about presentation, because I recognized, again, in my specific industry of musical instruments, that the guitar could play great. It could sound great. But in the end, that case and the aesthetics and the paint, the binding, everything has to be there. I hate to admit this, but the presentation was as important from the marketing standpoint as the quality of the instrument itself. Mm-hmm. Talk about presentation, the bottles, labels, things like that. How does that weigh in the big picture?
All of it. I always say product, price, then the fact that it's local. So product being obviously the juice that's in the bottle, but also the aesthetics of that bottle with that product. So we have definitely seen people, like back in my heyday, I would sell bottles to bars and restaurants, and I've some of the products that I sold, their bottles look like their labels were like a bad Band-Aid on the bottle. And I've had bartenders literally tell me, like, this is a great product. It's even expensive, more than I want to pay, but I'm not putting it on my back bar because it's ugly. And not even just that. It's because if you think about it like a showroom, imagine like your spot here with all the beautiful guitars and everything and the artwork, like it's your showroom kind of. It's your, like, this is like you, like the inside of you being up on the walls, right? So when a bartender or a bar manager runs their own program, their back bar is going to be kind of like glorious. It's going to be a showroom almost. Like, I handpick these things because they're good, they're priced right, and you're going to like them.
Okay.
And so the product can be good and the price can be right, but if the bottle isn't pretty, they're not putting it on their back bar. So we've definitely, distilleries more so than wineries, like been kind of a little bit more woken up in the times that they are with graphic designing and being able to create artwork and being able to take hand-drawn artwork and apply it to an actual digital artwork. And those type of things, so much different than back pre-2000 than now.
I can imagine.
So distilleries definitely have that cutting edge with branding and marketing, and you've seen that. And people have also been able to be smart enough to like rebrand as well. Right. From like Grist House Brewing Company, their original branding was night and day than their current, and it was influenced a lot by their canning, right, and things like that. So they have beautiful marketing right now. Distillery wise, I think Boyd and Blair actually just they didn't really change their branding too much, but they kind of changed how you see Boyd and Blair on the label. It's like a little bit bigger and it's stacked rather than side by side. But the distilleries, I mean, there's a cost. Bottles, if they're embossed with their label, like Bullet has embossed glass. That's like, I've talked to glass makers before, and they're like, yeah, if you wanted to buy, it'd be 30,000 bottles. I think, 30,000 bottles, all said and down, like $100,000 to $150,000 for your first purchase. So if you were a startup distillery and you wanted to go all in and get an embossed bottle, you would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to really get that going. And I don't believe there is one single distillery right now in Pennsylvania,
I would think so,
other than Blue Coat, Philadelphia Distilling, that has an embossed bottle. But those guys, when they got started, one of the partners was actually I believe like a fragrant and perfume bottle designer in Europe. So he brought that edge into it, and you can see when you see Philadelphia Distilling's bottles that they're gorgeous, all of them. And they're definitely something that I would strive to be if I was another distillery. So like when distilleries come to me and say, hey, we're thinking about becoming a distillery, like, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, and I've consulted with a lot of them, always free. My way is build relationships to eventually build profit.
Certainly.
So, and I try to guide them a little bit, but labels, embossed labels and the shape of them with the bottles and telling a story on the bottle and even putting the necklace around the ring, like a necklace around the neck of the bottle, having information. People sometimes are like, what do I do with a barrel rested gin? And I'm like, well, you can kind of treat it like a whiskey. You can certain drinks, you can kind of treat it like a gin. But once again, Philadelphia Distilling, with their marketing dollars, they have like 4 different drink options and the ingredients and how to make them on one little tiny card that's like 2x2.
Yeah.
And it's a little booklet and it hangs on the bottle. They sell the most barrel rested gin, which is not a really hot product anywhere you go, but they sell the most of it in my store because they have that marketing tools and the extra flair. So there's always that. So the presence and the bottle, it's dramatically everything. And I, but then some people it's funny. Like I even asked them, there's a podcast, or not a podcast, sorry, a Facebook page called Pittsburgh Whiskey Friends. Mm-hmm. And they're all the whiskey guys in Pittsburgh and they all love everything, and they're a great group of guys. I mean, there's a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 or plus people that follow this page, and they're always like talking about what products are available in what state stores, and like, hey, I just picked this up, or like I just won this lottery on the online thing with the state stores and stuff like that. And it's funny, like I actually asked one time on there, I was like, hey guys, like if you were going to buy a bottle solely on the bottle and the label, what would it be? And I got 50 comments on it, and a lot of them were like old school bottles, like styles. They weren't any of the new like flashy, like artsy fartsy or like eclectic type of styles. They're like the old school, even like High West. Obviously people love Blanton's. Like the hot thing right now, and honestly, I have better bourbon in my store than Blanton's, and I will proudly say that. But Blanton's is cool, and the bottle's really cool, and they have the whole marketing niche of the different bottle cap where it spells, I think it's like walking, and it goes the whole way into fast gallop or whatever, and it says everyone has a letter BLA, and so really cool things. And I'm planning on doing something like that with Bonafide Beer Company, but with rings.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, like we're gonna be putting them in our 12 packs where it spells out Bonafide Beer Company.
That's crazy.
And with plastic rings, and when you collect them all, you submit it, and then we're gonna give you a club membership, like an actual metal signet ring. That when you bring it in, it's kind of like a membership coin, but it's a ring. You bring it in, you get like $1 beers at a brewery.
Yes, that's marketing. That's real marketing right there.
So, and it's not like what did it? Annie did it in the Christmas Story movie, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm pretty sure I got it from that.
You might have. But you might have.
And that's how, everything. It's funny how everything from my childhood up till now, I was always when driving in cars, I always looked at billboards. I always was very, very fascinated with the
visual
marketing. Yeah. And for me, I was like, that person's an idiot, or whoever created that's an idiot, or whoever did that is awesome, and they know exactly their market. Like, I've been that way since I was a kid. And so I love that the marketing, the advertising, and I have an amazing marketing professional that works for me now, Seema. She helped run Pittsburgh Winery with Tim Gaber. Yeah. So Seema, they were business partners and life partners for a little while. I don't know what their situation was personally, but I just knew she understood wine, she understood music, she understood social media and marketing and events, and she was looking for a new change, and she jumped on board with me this year as well. So I was very fortunate to have her come aboard. And so she's been like a lifeline for our expansion with 1700 Penn Avenue and the wine shop that we opened up down the strip as well. And so, but aesthetics wise, don't always trust the label, but
no, don't always trust the label. So the typical, that's impossible to say the typical spirit drinker. Let's take bourbon / whiskey. Let's concentrate on those folks for sake of argument. You have your purists, I'm sure. Your semi connoisseurs, the people that are purists, that really the bottle probably is irrelevant. It's the quality of the alcohol. But I'm guessing those folks are the minority of the group of whiskey bourbon drinkers, right?
I guess. I mean, they make up a large chunk of it, and I would say that I'm like.
Are they collectors? Like
some of them, and that's the two different differences. You got products that sell well in wholesale to bars and restaurants that are for the cocktail making
to be consumed,
and then you got your collectors that are going to drink it, but they're going to let dust get on it first.
Got it.
You know, they might have 200 different bottles at home, and they're like, which one should I drink tonight?
Okay.
And
so that's a real thing then.
It is a real thing. And that's like, there's a different market. And we've discovered that more recently with some distillery clients of ours saying they're like, whoa, like, you know, people love our product and like we have a fan following and all this stuff. And they're like, why aren't we in every single bar and restaurant in Pittsburgh? And we're like, that's a different market. But we want to get you on that market, and let's talk about how to get you there. And we're doing that right now, and luckily we have a lot of people that are willing to be open-minded and work with us on that development. But when it comes back to like the whiskey aficionados, there's a lot of them out there.
Okay.
And you know, if you got like, I always say, quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. There's definitely those people. That was our tagline on the back of our growlers at Four Seasons Brewing Company, was that like, you know, we're a small brewery, we're craft, and it was like the whole marketability of it. So when it comes to craft, it is kind of that like, you know, you're willing to spend some more money because it's going to be like,
sure,
there's a story behind it.
Right.
You can literally meet the person that makes it.
Yeah.
You will
it's
never
the experience,
you'll
right?
never meet the person that makes High West. Like, where are you going to meet that person?
Right.
Right. Where are you going to meet you might be able to meet, if you're lucky, the owner of like Four Roses or Whistle Pig. Well, the gentleman from Whistle Pig actually passed away in the last year, but it's kind of the thing is like, it's more than just. And it's also local. Mm-hmm. You're keeping the money in your state. You know, like there's that too, that good feeling that like you're helping put food on the table for a family that's producing a product that like you enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you eat McDonald's.
I think the pandemic's going to even further accentuate that, us coming out of the pandemic, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's definitely fast-tracked a lot of distilleries in Pennsylvania they were all able to pretty much stay open during the first shutdown in March, April.
Right.
Because they made a deal with the government for making hand sanitizer and sanitizer for the federal government, the hospitals. They're a massive lifeline, and they didn't make any money off that. Mm-hmm. Like, they might have been able to find the right market to be able to make money, but some of these people were making it straight to just give it away. But then, you know, but also they got some branding out of that and definitely some love.
Absolutely.
But like
they should.
Yeah. Like my store, I think we had like 6,400 followers on Facebook, on the Pennsylvania Libations Facebook page. And in 5 weeks, we grew like over 3,600. We're over 10,000 followers now, like since then. But literally 3,000 followers like overnight.
I believe it.
And it was awesome. It was great for me. And our liquor store was open the whole time. That was wild. We never had e-commerce before that. We started it. Dan Spiker's sister Ellie, wonderful. She pretty much was like, she on call, like things changed. We had to build up pretty much from the ground up a brand new website to adhere to being able to sell wine and spirits on our website collectively, and being able to keep the money separated. And we did like 5,200 online orders in 5 weeks.
Wow.
We went from zero to that in 5 weeks. And we had
5,200 separate orders.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. What we do in 6 months our first 6 months of 2019 is what we did in 5 weeks in sales.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So it was definitely an extra bump. You know, I always say like, I'm not looking forward to looking at the end of year numbers this year because it's going to go down from this year, from 2020. But that is, to me, I'm like, that's my goal.
Right.
When we look at those graph charts at the end of 2021, I don't want it to go down. I want it to stay even or go up a little bit. Like if we can achieve that in 2021, which we should. We're growing our wholesale campaign. We're doing a lot of things, and we're open 7 days a week, you know? Yeah.
Let's go back and talk about your thoughts on entrepreneurship again. Like what if you had to speak to a group of young entrepreneurs right now, or wannabe entrepreneurs right now, it's too easy to say, hey, what's the advice you'd give them? But if you really wanted to talk about like mental mindset for people who really think they're going to leave corporate America, or a young person coming out of college that wants to go right into entrepreneurship, what kind of mindset do you think that person needs to have? Not specific to an industry, but just what kind of mental toughness do they need to have?
all of it. I mean, the work ethic is absolutely necessary. You got it. Like, you can have drive, work ethic, going to bed early, waking up early, don't going out partying, drinking, thinking that that's your flair and that's how you're going to get like business. You know what I mean? There is definitely obviously a side of that to an extent. But it's not about you as a person. It's about what you're doing and what you're providing as a service. And like we said before, like I said before was like customer service. Like, marketing is making a big deal out of nothing. It's when you have something that is selling itself for itself, it's customer service and it's the back end of the business model. As far as an entrepreneur these days, like, I was fortunate enough to have really good advisors in my life. One of them being my mother, others being my other two sisters. My stepdad was also advisor, and also I had really good attorneys, but attorneys aren't free.
No, they're not. No, they're
ever.
not.
But I was fortunate enough to have some people that were willing to give me a lot of dedicated time. The Small Business Development Center, which there was one in St. Vincent where when I lived in Latrobe, that's the one I worked through. But then also the one at Pitt, I worked with as well.
Okay.
And I would highly recommend any entrepreneur that is looking to start a business, don't do a thing until you have a business plan done.
Absolutely.
And the Small Business Development Center here in Pittsburgh at Pitt, that is an absolute resource. It's free. They will guide you. And then there's other local, like, financial institutions like the Progress Fund, that's based out of Greensburg, but they do a lot of work. I'd say 7 of the distilleries in my portfolio were funded by the Progress Fund.
Okay.
And they're like a private firm kind of, but like a little bit higher interest. But I mean, banks aren't going to give you any love. I'm going to tell you that, especially right now.
Right.
Yeah, the beer and distillery surge, and there's money to be made. All the business plans probably look the same as far as margins and stuff like that. But I've had some really good support with the Progress Fund on some of the business things that I've tried to do or have done. And it's not even just like giving money. It's they're hands-on. They're going to make sure you don't fail. They're going to walk you through it. They're going to keep supporting you through it. They're going to give you some leeway if there's issues, and they're going to, they'll work with you. And I've heard nothing negative about working with that. So those are type of things that you should definitely consider rather than going to the big bank right out of the gate or even bringing in investors. If you can do it yourself, do it yourself. And if you did bring in investors, don't bring in just a wallet. Bring in somebody that understands your industry and can bring something to the plate. If it is straight business, bring in a business investor. If you're in real estate, bring in somebody that understands real estate, right? If it's going to be beer and they, and if they don't know anything about beer, but they love good IPAs, but they have a whole bunch of free time to give you, that's cool too. My mom, they have the largest insurance brokerage firm in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
And they have like almost 30 books of business across the East Coast. And it's been around for 50 years. My grandfather started it 50 years ago.
Right.
My mom and my uncle are the main people there, and they have a whole bunch of family members that are on the board and are shareholders and stuff like that. And they have 120 employees. And my mom's getting close to retiring and stuff, but she was able to give me time to get this thing off the ground. So like, if you don't have somebody special like that in your life, you should try to find somebody like a mentor, somebody in that industry that understands it, and be willing to maybe like give them a piece of the pie someday.
Certainly.
You know what I mean? And I've had conversations with people like my accountant, or like technically my CFO, Matt Bliston. He's my accountant and CFO. He's been a part of this for a couple years now. And then my liquor attorney, Greg Zellar from Flaherty and O'Hara, is my liquor attorneys in Pittsburgh. They're like the boutique liquor law. Boutique, you love that word?
Yeah, I do. I do.
And then Eric Mungai is my business attorney, who's been a part of the whole thing when the Four Seasons crash happened. He was a part of that, keeping me off the ledge, and just making sure that I didn't do anything stupid that could have harmed me personally or financially by doing the wrong thing. Hence, I never said my business partner's name thus far.
Yes.
So
understood. Point made.
So the entrepreneur spirit, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight unless you play the lottery.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now, going on 6. This spring, holy crap, will be 6 years.
A lot of progress for 5 years, pal.
Yeah, I guess.
A lot of hours too, I'd imagine.
I love it though. I mean, that's the thing, is like,
you live it and you breathe it, man. That's what I always found about entrepreneurship, just being so, it's not work when you have a passion for it.
And I could say plan on the lonely road. It's
plan on the lonely road. That is really well put. That is so well put.
Yeah, because like when you're an entrepreneur and you're so into it, that you don't have much time for other things.
Right.
Luckily, I have a wonderful girlfriend, and I have a beautiful 11-year-old son.
Right.
And those are pretty much the only two things that are really in my life, other than family whenever it's the holidays.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends. I have some really great friends.
Right on.
But like it's definitely.
There's only 24 hours in a day. No matter how you've tried to carve more hours out of that 24, you can't really do that. Yeah. So I get it, man. I get it. That's what's your thoughts on the phrase "you can have everything"? Do you believe that to be true or not as an entrepreneur?
No, you can't have everything. No way, unless you're Amazon.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's that like 0.0001% of those whatever percent. So, but you can have everything. Now, what you need to do is set a goal. The exit strategy mentality, like we talked about. Right. And what is your goal? Is your goal to have a business for 5 years and find somebody to buy it from you? Is your goal to be a generational type of thing where you pass it on to your kids someday, or you bring in investors and you go public with it someday, and you just, you sell your shares someday and you go sit in St. John's Virgin Islands and fish every day on a boat. Right. And get a tan and live out your days, which I'm not opposed to at all. Right. To me, my
exit that brings fulfillment.
It does to some people, I guess. Yeah, but if you can, what was the phrase again? If you can have everything, or
can you have everything?
Not just with business. Finding out like love. And relationships, that's also a big part of that equation. But
is a balanced life fodder?
My life is far from balanced. I mean, I'm definitely heavy on the business side of things. I love spending time with my son. We get together almost every weekend, as often as possible. We go snowboarding. He gets the culture of the city while he lives out in Ligonier, so he has like that backwoods.
Best of both, actually.
Yeah, he does. So he grew up where I grew up in Ligonier, essentially in that same kind of lifestyle. And then when he comes to the city, like he's seeing the craziness of the Strip District every weekend, and biking around the city, and dodging cars with me and stuff like that. And kind of, sort of. He does. We stay in the bike lanes. We stay.
There's enough of them down there.
Child services are going to be calling me.
We know what you mean.
The
reason I ask you that question is there's all these catchphrases that are thrown out there today, whether they're entrepreneurs or toward entrepreneurs or just people in general. And you hear all the time, you need to live a balanced life, or, search for balance or crave balanced existence. And I've always felt that, nothing great in this world has ever been created by someone who had a really well-balanced life. Obsession and passion have driven every good idea into fruition.
Yeah.
And if you have that, there's no way your life is balanced.
Nobody's the same.
There's no way.
There's nobody saying like it's not Lady Liberty or whatever, where it's like the perfect the seesaw is right in the middle.
Yeah.
Because
the scales of life. Yeah.
It goes back and forth. Yeah. So my 80% or 75% of my life is business and work, and the other 25 that balances me.
Yeah.
But it's not always going to balance everybody else.
It's specific. Your balance is specific to you. It works for you. But and the other phrase that I brought to you is you can have everything. I have found that no, you can't. You can't have everything, because there's always a price to pay for things that you really want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to pay that price if you really want something bad enough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right?
And I mean, I have my Toyota Tacoma is 6 years old, has 165,000 miles on it.
Good for you.
I've definitely made that thing work for me, driving all over the state, doing what I do.
Yep.
I mean, I live in the Strip District. I have a nice apartment, but like that's what I have. I have my truck, I have no debt, and I have a nice apartment. But I'm also very involved with my business. Sometimes it's almost a succubus for me.
That's a good lesson, though. The whole keeping yourself in check while you grow your business, because I can tell you from younger realtors that I observe.
Yeah.
I see the splash, I see the flash, I see the perceived lie.
Yeah.
With some of them, just a small percentage, but some of them, they're buying into the illusion of what they want to be, the fake it till you make it crowd, but they don't last a year and a half. Done. So.
Well, like me is like, I wouldn't, like if I showed up to work with a brand new like 2021 Corvette, I would not be able to live with myself. Like Could I have this year? Maybe.
Well, sure.
But the idea is that like I am the people. Like I try to be, as an entrepreneur, I try to be the people.
Of course.
Who's your clients? Who
Of
are your
course.
customers?
Of course.
Who are your future friends and so forth? Like if you try to live above everybody else, you're going to be super alone. But when I said learning the path of the lonely road was about the fact that like you work all day, you're so focused that everything else just goes by you. And then you're at home, you're eating dinner at 8:30, 9 o'clock by yourself. I mean, even if you have a family, you're still going to be like they're already going to be eating and probably in bed.
Right.
And then you go to bed, you wake up at 5, 6 in the morning and you start it all over again. I mean, I had probably 25 emails out before 7:30 this morning.
Yeah.
Like I was, and then I, went to work, met with people, had a morning meeting, came here, have a lunch meeting, have another meeting, and then another meeting.
I totally get it. Yeah.
We're doing like a grand tour of all of our locations with a social media blogger, like foodie blogger, this evening from 5 to 8. Like, so my day is a 14, 15 hour day.
That's the life of an active entrepreneur. It just is. And if someone's not willing to really understand that from the beginning and then head in that direction, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. And there's a phase of maintaining too. There's building, maintaining, but then declining. But like 2020 was about like maintaining.
Sure.
Like just
for most.
Yeah. But we grew. We tripled our staff and all that, like we talked about. But 2021, like it was like, all right, January, I don't know if it's just a natural thing for me, but when January 1st happens, man, I'm just like, what's next? Yeah. All right, that year is done with. Really? All right, let's do this. Let's open up 2 more retail locations. Yeah. Let's get the brewery off the ground. We're finally into our first full year down at 1700 Penn with live music in the tap room and really being able to see what that's capable of doing, hopefully in a year that will progress and open up to the restaurants and open up with everything that we're hoping to be able to prove as a management company. So, and that's what we're doing down there. So, but yeah, it's fun. It
sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
I mean, I am. It's trivial though. Sometimes it's terrible because like
2020 must not have been that much.
I want to be like I want to be open-minded to everything, and I want to be able to give back and be able to help the community and doing things and stuff like that. And right now, it's like I have to make sure that the people that have given me the last couple of years of their life working with me, that they're number one. My job, what it was, I was telling, I was like, my job is to create jobs, put food on the table, and fucking party.
And all that,
right?
And all that.
So that's my whole thing is like just if I can just keep that maintaining, and luckily I have the right people in my life that are allowing me to do that, and allow me to sit here in front of you and talk shop.
Hey, the bottom line to me when I used to speak to anyone that wanted to do what I was doing, because invariably we didn't have a game plan. We started when the internet was fresh, selling something as traditional as a guitar, which most people would play first before they buy. We were selling them sight unseen. Everything we were doing wasn't supposed to work. It just happened to work.
Yeah.
But I was often asked by people, I want to get into that. How do I do it? How do I do that? And I didn't have really there was no game plan. I couldn't tell them specifically how to do it. And that's, people really want the easy route. They want you to tell them what to do.
Yeah, I've had people ask me how I do what I do.
To do. And I was just like, well, I had to figure it out myself. I'm not going to share that intrinsically with you.
For $500,000, I will tell anybody what I do.
Exactly right. I think there's that. But I cheer on the spirit that people they say they want to do things, but entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And it really takes a lot of tenacity, I think is the word that I found to be most useful when explaining what I did. And if you don't have it, it's okay. It's not a good or bad thing. If you just don't have it, it's just not for you.
Yeah. I call it carrying 2 bricks when everyone else carries 1. You build your house twice as fast. You have your first house built when the other guy or girl has half their house built. And by the time you have your second house built, you already sold your first house, and they just completed their first house. And what that allows you to do in my metaphoric mindset is that it gives you time. Though you're working hard, you might make mistakes. You're so far ahead than everybody else that you're competing against. You have time to make mistakes, fix them, make right by it, and you're still ahead of everybody.
Right.
And that's how I've always lived it. Like when I was 15 years old working for my grandfather at his nursery, and everyone else was carrying 1 5-gallon potted plant, I was carrying 2. And it wasn't because I was just, that's how I thought. Like, why wouldn't you carry 2? You can carry 2. Why aren't you carrying 2?
If you can, why are you not doing it?
Exactly. Yeah. So working twice as hard, but working smart too.
Right.
Not like brain before brawn, right? And to some extent. So, and that's where I make up with my lack of education, being that I don't have a college education at all, being that I got kicked out of high school.
You're in a good club, pal. Trust me.
No debt.
Got that right.
Right. And so so that's the idea. Where I'm lack in education, I make up with my hard work ethic. And I know that there's people out there that have that capability, and it's going to take time. Like, I'm like, why doesn't it happen now? Like, I would essentially have to sell my soul to an investor or pretty much give away most of my company. If I wanted everything that I think that I should have right now, it's just might take me 5 more years. So there's that tenacity, but you also got to be realistic,
right,
and it took me all the last 5-7 years of my life to really understand that. I'm like, why not now? And
well, to work, you need to work your business plan.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you ignore your business plan, yes, then there's crazy thoughts of you should be further ahead or somewhere else. If you follow the business plan and stay on course, you got a good guide there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't, though.
Yeah, and I mean, even like I've seen business plans like be completely the opposite of what you do. Where you build a business plan, you're like, okay, this is my thing.
Think about that.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, nothing on my business plan is what I thought it was going to be. And until you maybe get more seasoned, or you have the ability to hire somebody to help you build a business plan that can really and understands your industry, you're never going to be on spot. So you have to be willing to pivot at all times. And you have to be willing, and that's the idea of me with multiple companies, is more avenues of revenue, but also more spokes in the wheel. So if one breaks, so laws change, or a competitor just comes in and crushes you with a new investor with $100 million worth of marketing dollars or whatever, like you still have something to put food on the table. And so I've been creating all these different base foundations across from wholesale to retail, a brewery, to all these different entities and distribution, e-commerce, so that if something goes away, privatization for once. Right. What happens if they go privatized in Pennsylvania and every corner store can have liquor? Not necessarily even local. Like, yeah, my liquor store would be niche and it'd be local, would be cool still. And it would it'd most likely be profitable, but it would just not be like, we wouldn't catch the people that are just looking for a bottle of vodka because they can get it anywhere. But people looking for an experience and being able to try before you buy, they come see me. But so I'm just, but that pivot for us is, where are these people that can sell, all these corner stores that can sell liquor, where are they going to get their liquor? Well, guess what? I wholesale that liquor, and I wholesale local only. So you should have a local shelf in your little corner store or your bodega, and I'm going to give you a great deal because it's straight from the producer, essentially with my cut in there, instead of going through the state store, which they're going to get a way bigger cut, and you can't technically sell it for less than what the state store sells it for. You have to sell it for more.
Got it.
So being privatized, like if you buy a bottle of Jack for $20 at a state store, you're going to be probably paying between $23 and $30 for that bottle at any other privately owned liquor store, if that ever comes down. So, because those privately owned liquor stores will have to buy it from the state, and then they'll have margins that they're allowed to exceed the price.
Of course.
Well, we can sell it if it's depending on the certain type of package deals and different things. We can essentially, in a way, depending on how you look at it, like, somebody paid me $500,000, I could teach them how to do that.
You hear that?
Yeah, right. But the idea is that our margins are better. But going local, you're supporting local, but if that happened, and that's what we're building right now. We're saturating the state with reps. We're building relationships with the Giant Eagles and the Wawas and all the gas stations, selling ciders and wines to them because that's legal right now. And beer. So as soon as we have these relationships statewide and privatization happens, it's a flick of a switch.
Okay.
And our wholesale campaign just went from like doing $1 million a year or more to doing $20 million a year.
Okay.
And our margins are actually better in wholesale. So
interesting.
I'm waiting for that.
Interesting.
But I'll let it not happen for 5 more years.
I know. I understand the logic there.
Yeah, right. So that's so there's the timeline. That's where we're headed.
Do you think a lot of new entrepreneurs or people thinking about it may not have the mental toughness to address the setbacks that inherently come with entrepreneurship?
I guess. I mean, like the mental setbacks. I mean, yeah, it's. Oh man, like I have fought with myself. I've fought with family. I've fought with friends. I've had to fire friends. I've had to like do all kinds of things. I've lost friends like to death that worked for me. Like I've been through so much. And then the politics of it and the liquor, like, I mean, just all the laws and all this stuff. So yeah, I'm not even saying that I'm actually doing a good job at it.
Sure. No, I get it. I get it.
I'd like to think I am. That confidence, that like you definitely got to have that confidence, but you also have to be like understanding like that risk, and I've always been that way. I've always been like, I can do it better than you, but then it forces me to get better than you.
Absolutely.
And so I've always been that way my whole life. And I've always been that kid because I was the fourth kid of the family. I always wanted to make everybody like me, so I'd always be funny and do jokes and all that stuff because I was the youngest kid. And that kind of bled into me being a broker management company where I want everybody to like me by me making them money and figuring out how to make everybody happy.
Got it.
And it's been something that's, I think, built into my DNA, that with my family's entrepreneurship from the insurance business and having my mom as a great advisor. So the mental capacity, not everybody's going to have it. I'd say good sleep, good diet. Me, I got the dad bod going on 2020. What was I saying? Like 2020 added 20? Is
that what it is? Yeah. 2020 added 20.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been observing some folks. I added a little more than 20 with some folks I know. But
yeah, it was, like the freshman 20 or whatever.
That's right. Sophomore 20. Yeah. Freshman 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Something. Freshman 10 or whatever. Yeah. But that's for sure. Because like normally I'd be very active. I'd be on my just going places, and doing things and going. Yeah. So. I mean, just walking downtown, that was a thing because there's stuff to do downtown. But now you go down to Market Square, everything's shut down.
I know.
I was like, I went down there to eat the other day for lunch. And I'm like,
where?
There's nowhere open.
Yeah. That's going to change, though.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, and ironically for you, you had a tremendous 2020, but you couldn't have seen how that was going to happen. I mean, none of us could have seen what the year was going to look like, but
I might have manifested that. No,
you might have. It's all his fault. See? It's all his fault. I
believe in manifestation, but I mean, I didn't think it was going to be that crazy. But I mean, there was definitely. It was March 16th. I remember Monday that morning. I was practically coming to tears with the fact that I had to lay off all my staff.
Right on.
I laid off everybody but myself and one other employee, not knowing if we were allowed to keep the liquor store open. And then we found out through Rob Castle and some other entities that were like, holy crap, we're allowed to stay open. And then I was like, that Thursday I called somebody else back. I'm like, hey, do you want to work? Like, and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll come in. Like, he's like, I got nothing else going on. So he came back in. And then the next day, somebody else. The next day, somebody else. And then next thing you know, we got 25 staff within 2 weeks, going from 8 or 9. Right. And it was just wild. It was like, and we did it, I guess, I mean, I don't know. It was cool. It was so much fun, but like, that's what you have to be ready for. And at all times.
No question.
There's nothing.
Well, yeah, because it could have went bad had you not been permitted to open. I mean, you would have faced a whole different load of challenges as well too. You just don't know.
And there's an art now, even the real estate, with commercial real estate, with bars and restaurants, breweries. You better have outdoor space now, man. Like, that's all I gotta say about that. Do not put a restaurant in a place without an outdoor entity that is going to pay your bills if you inside's closed.
That's exactly right. I never even thought about that.
You've divided the political science of COVID has created this like mentality where people are like, I'm never eating inside of a restaurant until like for another year or two. But if you have outdoor, I'll eat that up all day long.
Yeah.
And I've proven that at 1700, where we have a massive parking area, and then the indoor space, the ceilings are 15 feet high, and it's a 4,000 square foot wide open space.
Right.
And so it's very airy. We only have 50 seats in there for the tap room, no bar stools, the whole thing. So it's very spaced out.
Right.
We still have people that'll be like, where's your music this weekend? We're like, oh, it's inside. They're like, yeah, I'll come back in the summer.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's okay.
Yeah.
People have to do what's best for them. Their headspace.
If it was warm enough in January, which we've seen it before, or February, if it's probably above 45, 50 degrees on a Saturday or Sunday, we will have music outside.
Oh, yeah.
So as long as the musicians are comfortable with it, with their gear.
As long as the fingers move.
Yeah. So we're that's the whole idea. Always pivot, always be ready to, and my staff love and hate me because of it. Because I'm like, never say no to a deal. Never say no to a sell. Like, what do you mean you don't want to do that? No.
There's always a way.
Yes.
If you care enough, there's always a way.
Yeah.
And if you care about being successful, period, right?
Yeah.
We love talking to entrepreneurs in Pittsburgh, people that are creating, whether it's music, art, whether it's communication, whether it's businesses, people that are creating and doing things and are passionate about them. Those are our ideal guests for sure.
Restaurant industry would probably be a good topic too, like bringing in some chefs and some.
No, we've had a couple to this point. I'd love to have more. The chefs are a fascinating thing to me because that's art. It's art.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and people don't think of that as art, but they think of it as art.
But if there's, especially if it's like a chef-owned restaurant, like that's a whole other beast there. Those guys are like very much.
We've had like Vivo Kitchen over in Swickley. Sam DiBattista had been on, and just hearing, we had him in the middle of the COVID struggle where they were open and they were closed again, then an open. It's back and forth, and just to hear the struggle that a upscale restaurant was going through in the heart of Swickley of all places, it was just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, they probably would have done better if they just would have been like, we're doing tacos now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean,
crazy.
I mean, you look at Condado, they're killing it because their margins are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
but being able to pivot, which goes back to our entrepreneurial discussion as well, that if you're not willing to do that or even understand that could happen to you, something like that.
And anything in business. So like, if you're a retail brick and mortar, you better have wholesale and e-commerce set up, like e-commerce for retail, but also a wholesale campaign. Restaurants, you should have obviously the in-house, then you should have like, things to go, cocktails, beer, like there's licenses that you can sell beer and wine to go. Right. There, you should have, every restaurant should have one of those. Absolutely. And essentially, and then, other things, whatever it is, like I know like Con Alma, we were talking about them, like they're doing jazz. You can stream jazz. You order food to go, you pick up your food or get it delivered. And then with that purchase, you get like an entry name or something like that, where you get a free stream of the live jazz playing at the restaurant.
That's very cool.
And you get to watch live jazz from home.
Very cool.
Yeah. So like, there's definitely people that are going the right way.
That's thinking outside the box.
Yeah. And what could be in the box is pizza. Like, I mean, I know margins on pizza are awesome. Yeah. And if you can find a way to like find an old pizza oven or something like that and start doing pizzas to go, and that's what Aviva does at 1700.
Right
They're like, we just turned on DoorDash. I'm like, hey, time to fly, guys. Like,
you got to adapt. I mean, you are proof that it can be done successfully. And there's many other examples in Pittsburgh as well too. I just, and I think Pittsburgh people understand what these businesses are going through. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, people want to help. Yeah. They want to give their money and their business local. Yeah.
There's a group, Mindful Hospitality Management, a couple seasoned bartenders, and they own a bar. I think it's up by like the Pittsburgh Zoo up in that area, St. Clair Bar, Cecil Usher and Cat Cannon. Yeah. They're definitely some of the most renowned like restaurant industry or bar industry people with the U.S. Bartenders Guild and stuff like that. Right. And they're doing some things to help raise money for industry people as well. You got Spencer Warren down at the Warren downtown. Yep. He's doing the food drive and stuff like that, working with some different collectives there. I mean, there's definitely good things out there. And like, I don't think there's so many people that still have their job and they're working from home. People really don't, like, there's a lot of people that aren't actually affected by COVID. Right. There's a lot. Right. And people just don't really realize
there's no question about that.
But there is an industry of people that were affected, and the main ones are the restaurant industry.
No doubt.
And so...
No doubt.
And there's... I think I remember hearing a stat that they said by January of this year, 60% of small business restaurants in America would be closed.
It's incredible.
And I'm not sure what that stat is right now, but I'm sure it's probably at least half that, if not more. Yeah. So, which is, and my mom, she's like, I can't believe you're opening up a fucking restaurant in 2020. I'm like, well, my business model is different. I have a wine shop in there, and because of my management fees and all this other stuff is like, it works. Yeah. And so we have the ability to be able to do things a little bit different because of my business model. Right. And so I'm fortunate that it's all kind of come together.
There's too much, there's still, in my opinion, I still think there's too much panic long-term panic right now in the minds of people because they're dealing with what they're dealing with, and they project that for forever. I don't think that way. I rationally try to understand what I'm going through and realize that this is temporary. Like everything else in life, we will get back to whatever normality looks like, but it'll be close to what we had, if not identical, down the line.
Yeah,
maybe even better. So I just the way I view life.
I'm manifesting right now that we're not going to regress. We're going to keep moving forward slowly but surely. Politically out of the mind, so I don't know what Biden's going to do with he wants to get like millions of vaccines out within the first 100 days, and
I don't know
whatever. But I just saw CDC said if you come into America from outside the country, you have to have a negative test within 3 days of your return, and a lot of those countries don't have testing within more than 5 days or more, so you can't really plan to leave the country right now. And which just blows my mind. So, I mean, if any time is now, like, turn around, do staycations, like
absolutely
spend money on local small businesses.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know.
It's smart decisions.
Yeah. Or just, go to Florida. But where it's wide open.
Or Texas.
Yeah, I saw like the AARP.org or whatever. They had a thing that like, it was like just a month ago, I actually posted on my personal Facebook was what every state's doing as far as the laws and regulations are going.
Right.
And Pennsylvania, there's only 3 or 4, maybe 5 tops of other states in the country that are like Pennsylvania right now.
Okay.
And like Indiana, California, Chicago and stuff like that.
New
York as well.
Yeah.
But the Midwest, that Bible chapter or whatever out there, they're all wide open. Most of them are wide open. I mean, there was a time where they were closed for a small amount of time, but like restaurants wise, because they in that that website, it literally talks mostly about like the restaurants like being open because that's a huge part of it.
Right.
And so it's pretty wild to see like how many places are like, at least when we were shut down during Thanksgiving and then the holidays, I was like 45 other states, they're all open during the holidays. But they also shut down like, back in like October and before the holidays.
Right.
So they did it right. I feel like we could have done it way better. They should have shut us down in September and October in the inside bars.
Yes.
Locked us down.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Like, restaurants could have stayed open outside and did the whole thing and like all that stuff, and retail could stay open and whatnot. But as far as like killing the bars and restaurants during the 2 biggest money-making times of the year,
it's fucking horrible.
It is horrible.
I mean, it wasn't managed right.
No, they should call me Christian Simmons. And they should be like, hey, maybe we should have an outsider that has no personal interest necessarily, but also thrives on all things restaurant industry.
That would be pragmatic thinking, and that doesn't happen in government.
Why wouldn't they just bring in like 20 different bar and restaurant owners? Like, I mean, there's a restaurant and bar association, and I understand that like they are a big part of like the success of the restaurant industry, but like, I mean, to me, I don't know.
It was a power play.
Yeah. Maybe I'm gonna announce him run for president.
There you go. You heard it. If it happens, you heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I don't know. It'd be really funny.
My friend had a great time.
Yes,
I will definitely have you back in soon.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, buddy.
All
right, friends. We are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.